has authored several articles on India and published a book called In Search of Immortality, An Introduction to Indic Worldviews. He served on the faculty of Harvard Medical School, Boston, and he creates summary posters for India Discovery Center. So today he is focused on a topic of great interest to all of us because it is intercalated with our daily lives. He will talk about the art and culture of this period. He takes us on an elaborate and very scholarly review of the rich, diverse, and creative art and culture of this what he refers to as the medieval period of Indian history. I especially enjoyed his analysis of the temple architecture that was developed during this time, and I think you will too. So,
thank you, Dr. Javedi, for your kind words. Now, as she said, my work is to entertain because the heavy stuff, most of the heavy stuff is now philosophy, religion, etc. So what I'm going to talk about is art and culture. But as you may realize that art and culture for 1,000 years period, over 1,000 years period, is not a small task. Especially, and I also look at this period, like other speakers, that it is a very dynamic age, very prolific age. Unlike the medieval period in Europe, where it was earlier thought it was kind of dark age, and later on scholars went looking for seeds for Renaissance. Indian medieval period or Hindu period is highly prolific, dynamic. It is no question of dark age being dark age. At this time, just to recap, that in the land, so many things are happening. Between 700, which is early part of this period, and 1200, which is middle of it, within 500 to 600 years, there are so many small and big kingdoms or empires appeared on the scene. They continuously fought amongst themselves to increase their dominion. People were migrating from north to south, west to east. Why? Because as new empires appeared, they needed priests, artisans, administrators, and so people were moving because new opportunities were available to them. Relationship with Southeast Asia was developing, and actually it was there, it became stronger. Inland and maritime trade was increasing. Science, different type of science, mathematics, astronomy, healthcare related science, they were developing. Language and literature grew, and Hindu cults became more prominent at this time. And most of the kings gave large land grants to religious organizations to show their affiliation and support to different creeds, different people of different religions. So this period, as I said, is a very rich and diverse creative period. So what is culture? If we look at it, culture is perhaps everything that we do. That embraces art, customs, traditions, food, what we wear, how we wear, purpose of life, etc., etc. This is a huge thing, and to talk about culture, and maybe one whole day seminar can be devoted to India's culture. In 25 minutes, I cannot complete everything. And art is an expression. Art gives an expression to cultural beliefs of a society. And art itself has many modes: architecture, sculpture, painting, drawing, drama, music, many. But behind this behind art, there is a creative spirit that longs to express itself. And in India, every region in this period expressed themselves in many ways. And as my friend Prem Nagar said, that there are so many languages, and in their literature, in those languages appeared So that's these regional literature and regional languages are giving a new identity to those sections of the society or those regions of the country. And so finally, the modern India that we see with all its diversity its foundation was laid in that era. So this is the topic, these are the topics that I'm going to cover in the next 20 minutes. And if we dive deeper, to start with architecture. I'm writing there types of architecture, but I will primarily be focusing on temple architecture. Why temple? Because every king wanted to have some big temples created. The temples are symbols of their wealth, symbols of their power. They also show their support and affiliation to different religious beliefs. Temples are also source of creation, source of employment. When in their construction, some of the temple projects ran from 5 to 20 years. Sometimes the fathers started project and sons ended the project. So massive temple construction, and that's why I think that. And also temples they will also help us understand the sculptures and paintings in them. So the temples can be broadly classified as northern or Nagar style, Dravid or southern style, Vesar, which basically is Deccan. So northern lies from Himalayas to Vindhyas. Southern goes from Krishna river to the Kanyakumari, and Vesar is in the middle of these two, which is blended, or basically is also known as blended style. And then there are unusual styles that did not fit in any of these broad categories. Sub-regional is that you can talk about Chalukya style, Chandela style, Rajput or Hoysala style, and that's all. And that's how you classify these. This is the simplest form of Nagar style, where the simplest form is a square area. This is the sanctum, where the image of the deity is established, and then there is enough room for pradakshina or circumambulation. Outside the temple, there are projections. These projections are called rathas, and then there is a mandap, which is also known as jagmohan. So this is the simplest architecture, simplest form of the northern temples. What happens that on top, so this is where the cell is formed, and on top of that cell, the elevation is created. And these projections are followed from the bottom to the top. You can see that. And that's why, because these lines are followed from bottom to the top, this is also known as Rekha Shikhar. So this style of erecting temples or building temples creates a curvilinear shikhar. On top of that, there is amlak, which is a capstone, it's a notched capstone, and on top of that is kalash. In front of that, the jagmohan has a pyramidal roof on it. In this case, what they have done is they've taken this rectangular sanctum and tilted it diagonally so that now a person can enter straight, and this is the direction, this is the axis of the temple. This plan is for this temple, Rajarani temple, and this is Lingaraj temple. And then another thing that most of the big temples are not just one temple, they are a complex of temples. Another northern style was in Khajuraho. There they became more creative, and they took the rectangle, again based on the Vastu Shastra. They took the rectangle where the sanctum was created, and then as they went up, they rotated the rectangle at different angles, fixed period. So as they went up, it created many kind of projections, and this is the sort of structure they created. Their shikhar does not have rekha shikhar. This shikhar has different projections. In Khajuraho, several temples, 3 or 4 temples are on this large, built on large plan. The plan is, actually they also added more than one mandap. The plan is that this is called Ardh Mandap here, this is Mandap, then this is Mahamandap, this is the cell and the shikhar, and in between Mahamandap there is a small space which is called vestibule. It's kind of a vestibule, and within this area they have place for projection. And these projections that we see here, these are called transits. But in Khajuraho, there were other forms of temple also in architecture. So this is a Varaha temple without any such elaborate scheme. It's a simple temple built on high plinth, pillars, and the roof is supported by pillars. Another unusual form here is Chausak Yogini, where there are 64 cells around a rectangular courtyard. This is basically a Devi set. So these Chausak yoginis are the attendants of Devi. Then we come to the Dravid style. Dravid style is quite different from the northern or Nagar style. In the Dravid style, instead of building a curvilinear top, they have on top of the main cell, they erect a structure, and then after that they keep on adding stories. Each story, subsequent story, is smaller in size and shorter in size. So as a result, when you look at them, they give a pyramidal view. This temple, this is Dharmaraja, was built in 7th century. This is about 8th century, and by the time you come to Brideshwar temple in Tanjore, it is a 12 or 13 story huge temple. In south, there is another thing that these temples are surrounded by a wall, and within that wall there are gopurs for entering the temple. Initially these gopurs were small, but in later period gopurs became the site of greater attention. They were more elaborate and much bigger, and lesser attention was paid to the Viman, main Viman. Another form of south was this, without any, it has a capstone, but it does not look that the same way as these temples. It has a different touch, it's a variation. The interesting, the Vesar style, which is also known as a mixed style. In northern Karnataka area, there is a Badami, Aihole, Pattarkal, and Haleli. These are the centers of Vesar style architecture. In Pattarkal, this is a temple complex. If you look at it, it certainly is a blend. This is on the southern style, and this is northern style with some changes here. And these are slightly different variations of this. But if you come to Hoysala, in the Hoysaleshwar temple, it has no shikhar, no kalash or anything. It's a flat top temple. There's also a double shrine, the Shiva temple, where the linga is established in these places, and there's a Nandi established here. You could carry it from any side and then approach the other one through transit. Then there are some unusual forms which did not fit in anything. Actually, they do not fit in any of these just for architecture. For example, this area, Morena, which is very close to Khajuraho, but their architecture of this Chausak Yogini temple is it sits on top of a very rocky hill. It looks like a disc. You enter it, you see in the center there is a Devi sanctum, and there are 64 cells created around the center. This is Martand or Sun Temple in Kashmir, very different architecture and style. Here it is a Buddhist Mahavir, at Harpur in North Bengal. From a distance it looks like a hill, but inside it is kind of a different terraces. So there is a terrace, and then on top of another terrace, on top of another terrace, and it gives a look like that. So basically, and this is a very small sample of temple architecture that I've shown you. There's so much of variety that you can go on seeing these pictures. But it's not, temples are not the only things that we built. In this period, we also built many big and important forts. Many of these forts had palaces inside. This is a 8th century Gwalior fort which is built on top of a hill. This is another big fort on top of a hill. I think this two is on top of a hill. But this is in this between 8th and 15th century, many other forts and palaces were built. I'm not going to cover them. Around the same time on the western front, as it has been mentioned by others, that the Arabs had already approached or reached the northwestern front of India. They had already captured Sindh and Multan, and they were also trying to make inroads into India. By late 1100s and early 1200s, they already set up Delhi Sultanate. Qutbuddin Aibak erected this Qutub Minar. Of course, he built only one level of it. His son-in-law Iltutmish erected 4 other levels of it. He said, and then if you go to the Bhutan side, these are the 2 shrines. The distinct thing is that here in their art, Islamic art, which I find is that their art is very abstract and austere in the sense that the way we go and put too many images in our temples, and I will show you more pictures on the images that are carved on the walls of the temple, and so many figures and dance figures and etc. that are put in, they do not have anything like that. But their beauty lies in the abstract, pure abstract, austere beauty. So it's just a rectangular shrine, and this one has. But interesting thing that we see is that they have a dome which does not look like Shikhar or Viman, but on top of dome they do have a finial which is similar to what we have. But they do not have colors. They do, the way we put a dhwaja at the top of our temple, the Shikhar, they do have a flag or pataka or dhwaja, whatever you call it. But their art form is very different.
We have about 8 minutes left. 8 minutes.
Now, sculpture impact of medieval period. What we see here, the medieval period. By the time medieval period arrived, the classical period or the golden period had reached its peak in art, sculptural art. And in this period, there were 2 things happened. People were looking for new avenues, experimenting with new concepts, trying to build new structures, art forms. And there was a huge demand for large number of temple construction. There was a huge demand for producing them. In this process, what happened, that these new temples that were built, they were massively decorated temples. They are highly ornamented with images. The bodies, the human bodies or figures, they show extreme positions. But something else happened. In many of these figures, they do not have the facial expression. So human being is shown with all kind of body postures and everything, but facial expression, lesser attention is paid to facial expression. And erotica became very explicit. Khajuraho took it to extreme. So that we will see those. And so what happened, there's so much of decoration in a temple, I could not rest on an image and think something beyond it. I moved from one image to another. There's so much of plethora in here. And in this process, art lost its symbolic value in some cases. Here, this is a late, Avalokiteshvara is in the 9th century. Is built on classical period or Gupta period architecture style. Full body person Avalokiteshvara is modeled here, and the face shows the inner feeling of an enlightened being, as if he is with the being, he is absorbed in the being. When you come to the same school in about 300 years later, you see Nataraj, where he is all kind of arms and legs are going all over the places, which is fine, because by now it was possible, because all the mathematical formulas, ratios, etc. for building these sculptures was already codified. So artists and artisans had to learn those rules, but once they could learn those, they could produce these images. So it was not necessary that they had to have certain experiences, personal experiences that they were trying to show. They basically created an image. So this is where Nataraj has no expression on his face. If you come to Khajuraho here, you see how extreme position of body and limbs has been shown, which is possible. It's a great craftsmanship. And but it was not possible in this period. So that was one mark of this period. Another mark was to take the emphasis was on ornamentation. So Varaha from 7th century Varaha and 12th century Varaha. Here the 12th century Varaha is heavily decorated, but 9th century Varaha holding Prithvi or Bhudevi is not so heavily decorated. It's a more serene type of image. So the emphasis on ornamentation, then not an inch was left. Every place had something or the other carved in the horse's rear leg, his tail, wheel, everything is carved. So much so that when you go to Krishna here, Krishna is holding Govardhan. But around Krishna himself is so heavily decorated, and around him there are so many other figures that one does not or cannot focus on Krishna alone, or understand that, or the focus on that myth which is represented. Look at the sculpture and the loss of expression. Here Tara from 9th century, Tara has an expression as if she understands the pain or the suffering of existence. But when you come to 11th century, Saraswati, very well built, but no expression. And when you compare to Maheshmardini, she has no expression and with extreme body posture and heavy decoration. So that's what happened, that when you produce large-scale art, you sometimes lose some quality. There's another, art became less of suggestion and more demonstrative. The earlier stage, if you look at the Amras couple, there's only a hint of suggestion there. And later on in Khajuraho, we take it to the extreme, where it is hardly any possibility. Here there are possibilities. Here possibilities are already realized. Now in sculpture, we also had work done in metal. Most importantly, bronze and brass. So the art in bronze is very famous. Look at how well decorated Parvati is. These sculptures also show the fashion of that time, jewelry that was used at that time. So she is very well decorated, her hairstyle, her headdress, Krishna himself. So that brings us to dance and drama. And as we know and others have mentioned, that in the Indian tradition, dance, drama, and music have all been tied to religious rituals from the Vedic time. But this, later on in Natya Shastra, codified rules for evoking certain sentiments or rasas in the audience based on the bhav or gesture or postures of the performer. These dance postures were sculpted on the walls of temples. During this period, various dance forms flourished, and about 8 or so dance forms matured and are now known as classical dance. These are essentially, they like Bharatanatyam, Kathak, or Manipuri. They are essentially dance drama. They are not just dance, they are dance drama in which the performer plays out a story, acts out a story using gesture. And there was, due to this, flourishing of different art forms and dance forms that too added to the growing regional identities. Each region has its own dance style. On top of that, we have folk dances, and there are about 140 or so different folk dances. These dances are highly energetic. They are simple in form. They are dancers wear colorful clothes, sometimes paint their faces. And so folk dance, and men and women, either men and women dance together or they dance in separate groups, and when they dance, they sing too. So folk and tribal dances also enrich the culture. On painting, you have miniature painting that started in the middle of 8th century in the East, in the Pal dynasty period, around 750. And these miniature paintings were initially done on palm leaves, where small paintings, Buddha's images were placed next to the religious text. But later on, this painting was done on paper also, and it took its own course. The colors were created from different materials, vegetables, indigo, stones, gold, silver, etc. In the 10th century, it moved from the east to the west. During Mughal period, it reached its peak. And then later on, many schools of miniature painting developed. Religious painting, you can see this is two different styles developed. Secular painting, these secular paintings this is from Kailashnath temple, Ellora, 8th century, and this is 12th century Brihadishwar temple. You can see how ladies, what kind of dresses they are wearing, what kind of jewelry they are wearing here, how they are decorated, these girls are decorated. And this is Vijayanagara. It's a very interesting image that I see. Here the ladies are watching apparently some show or something. Every second woman is a kind of attendant to the previous one. This woman is holding a fan here, this woman is holding a shower, and this also woman is holding something or other. It looks like these three are mistresses to these two women, and there is a difference in their clothes also. And you can see the different patterns, textile patterns, and different jewelry, etc. that they are wearing. It tells about the society of that time. It is this kind of a religious painting because you have somebody like look like Vara, you look like somebody Brahma. So it does not look exactly secular. It's some kind of a. You have to stop. Okay. About poetry. Poetry, when you go look for poetry, it clearly shows that as time went by, more and more poetry was taking place in the regional languages. Earlier it was Sanskrit, and slowly people started doing poetry in the regional language. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll move on. Our next speaker is Bijoy Mishraji, who is our fearless leader, and he's sort of he spearheaded this whole India Discovery Center. And just as an aside, I have to tell you that this is one of probably 15 other projects that he's working on very intensively. So he has an incredible amount of energy and brain power. So he touches here on many aspects of science and technology during this Hindu period, including a topic that's of special interest to him, namely the science of melody. He draws on his vast science background and has put together a fascinating talk on the landscape of science in India.
Okay, good afternoon. Now, people say science and technology in India. People think of physics, chemistry, biology. People think about the science we do. In earlier days, science was not science. Science was scholarship. Science was natural philosophy. So a poet is a scientist. A woman is a scientist. A person, natural person, a farmer is a scientist. The scientist is like one who discovers techniques, discovers ideas, discovers materials, discovers processes. So we'll see. We'll have a very quick summary and we'll go through. So now I want to go through like the material of this period is massive. I'm giving you a sample of what I could come across or I could study. Now, we have a principle in IDC that we don't present things that we have not studied. So in that spirit, I'm kind of trying to quickly go through some of this text here. There's a text called Armageddon, where in first time you kind of discover, as I said before, that Earth rotates. Then this gentleman comes, Bressangita, he's an engineer. He gives different materials. You saw the big temples, you see big structures and so on, how they're built. So he gives material about how they will be glued. And there is astronomer, but his astronomy is like a more astrological, but his science is deep. Then comes this gentleman, Siddhanta Ramani, Bhaskara. So he talks about the so-called calculus. Calculus in the sense the planets do not really, what happens, you must understand, it's a two-dimensional. From here, they're observing. So the question is shadows, question is tangent, question is how axis changes. Then we have mathematics. So I'll try to go through this as I speak on, but I just want to see this. His text is not massive, but rich. And you have to find science inside of it. Then language is the kind of became extremely powerful, and I don't know why. That is, the Indians thought that the only thing that we can do research without instruments, without laboratory, is your own speech. So it could be possibly to discover what truth is. How does a person speak the truth? How many dimensions truth may have? So anyway, so you can see I cite these pictures, but then this look, I'll go to those. Then the poetics, Prem did handle some of this, but then again, it's not the question of how you speak, how to use a word, and how do you impress, how do you convey, how do you communicate. The question is communication as a tool. Means I'm saying something, but how many images I should use, how many qualifiers I should use, how much diction I should have in order that I can communicate. And then this developed, so in the sense the words through poetics became music. And we have also medicine and botany. Go on. So I'll touch on astronomy, some of these topics and so on gradually as we do. Okay. Here I'm citing three people, Aryabhatta, Brahmana, and Bhaskaracharya. So you see this, the apparent motion. Now what he does is, so this is in a true science way, you can miss it. You can miss it because he just says as a stanza, as a write-up, that look, the stars are not moving, just like a boat is moving and you see that things are going in the other direction as you go on a river. So similarly, the sky looks like moving, but the earth is moving. So it's like pure conjecture, but intuitive conjecture. And so nobody has followed up until Copernicus a long time later. Brahmana, so he calculated the distance of the planets. That's because he knows that the concentric spheres, those spheres are wrong, of course, but he kind of tries to measure them. And through that, he discovers the diameters, the Earth diameter, Sun's diameter, the Moon's diameter. And then Bhaskara, so he has told before, the infinitesimals, so spherical trigonometry and so on. Mathematics, this guy is a genius. So what he does is, he brings this zero. Again, not like the mathematics we do as number theory. He hides it. But that, a concept of zero probably existed, but he enunciates it. The algebra negative numbers, this is very important. Negative numbers in the sense people, there are no negative numbers in the Roman alphabet, Roman counting. Negative. Negative in the sense a number can be negative. So the concept of that comes through by virtue of the trade, that you have a loan and you have a profit. So loan is negative. So probably they had some cash flow or some understanding of it, and then Mahavira, he's like a Jain philosopher, he brings out decimal system. Then Hemachandra, this one, the genius of the first rank, he comes in 12th century, he's also a Jain, and you can see that he doesn't really talk or something, does like this. But then he writes any topic in the world, he writes. He writes Sanskrit, he writes Prakrit, he writes Pali, he writes mathematics, he writes algebra. He writes. I don't know whether he's one person, 5 persons, or move on. Then science of speech. I love this. So this gentleman is my teacher. So his name is Bhartrihari. What he does is, so he for the first time says that as I'm speaking to you, each word has a meaning. And meaning goes to you. And you understand the meaning when you hear it. So he calls the word, this word, bubbles, bursts inside of you. I say your name, so you hear the name linearly, sound goes linearly. But then after it comes to you, you then say, yes, I got it. He called me. Now, this gentleman comes later. He says, well, that's not really true. The word has a meaning, but what is a dhvani? What is dhvani? It is what the meaning conveyed to the man. It is not what I conveyed. It is what the man understood. So it's like an echo in the brain. Just like I'm telling you, I'm trying to see, I'm communicating to you. But each of you has your own echo. So that perception that we understand in our own way, is a dhvani. So then the question is, how do I create a dhvani? How do I create my word in such a manner that your dhvani would be same as I'm trying to communicate? Here comes this gentleman here, Abhinavagupta. He there says there's something called Russia. Russia. That means that when I say I can create Rasa in it, and that Russia will emanate Russia in you. Then the question is, how is Rasa? So then again research continues. So this particular gentleman called Brahma, so he says that Rasa can continue, Rasa can come if I can use ornamentation. I don't say your name, before your name I tell what you are. Blah, 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 so that you get attention. And then I say, then you get the point. So that becomes alankar, ornamentation. So before the topic is there, you have a large material. That continues. This gentleman of Nandi, he tries to put it all together in a book, the only book of its kind in the world, of how to say words, how to write words. Then another one, somehow the Gujarat area, Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh, and so that is very rich, Ujjain is very rich. Bhatti, he says Bhatti Kavyam, so he tries to teach grammar. That's another point. That is, my speech would not be right. I may be very extremely ornamented, but I may be wrong. I may not communicate properly because my syntax is wrong. So he said you have to hold the syntax because that is the more tool of communication. So that's Bhatti. Then comes the gentleman called Mamata. He's from Kashmir. So he says that look, so this is how the Alankar, we use 3 words, Alankar, Rasha and Dhvani. So this, how do we use them? So here are the whole examples in the book. And finally this gentleman comes from the area I come from, actually, the neighboring village. So he kind of said that you try to bring Russia to Dhvani. I hope I make you understand that the Russia as a topic, people use it. Russia is a basic word. Basic meant that Russia is a test. Rasa is essence. Rasa is nectar. Rasa is fragrance. But the word has Rasa. The scene has Rasa. My house has Rasa. I have Rasa. So that's the new discovery, and see if we can do Rasa. For example, we did this event here. Can we create a Rasa? When you're Rasa, we're all together. But it's very easy out of it. Move on. Science of melody. So that thing, so the Rasa thing can come to like performing arts now. That is, how do I present? So that becomes melody. So melody, so Rasa, melody. So Rasa leads to a term called Raga. Raga. That means I have the following ways of communicating, and then by virtue of using those phases, which are your phases, somebody said Shruti. Oh, I think Prem probably. Shruti. 22 Shrutis. So which are in our voice. So I use them in different fashion to create a raga. And raga can be my mood. I can express in that raga. And then it will affect you, it is biological. That's the idea. And we do that. We people kind of they transform that into instruments and so on, where they say, yeah, I feel good. I feel good because that raga is in you, or it could generate the raga in you. So, raga is perceived, rasa is perceived. So raga is a production thing. Rasa is something, rasa is not there. Rasa happens. Rasa is a mental state. I get it. I feel happy. Happiness does not come. Happiness is a feeling. Rasa is a feeling. Then there is two gentlemen I cite here, one called Matanga. So he coded all this Brihadasi. Now this is very important. In the sense, what Brihadasi is, this is where I say in the beginning, that is the Rasa in Indian life was understood much earlier. That is, life has to have Rasa. Life is happiness. Life is not, the life is falling on me. Whatever I have, let me enjoy the day. I have the following. I'm happy with it. So that's because the food was there. That's my interpretation. But so the Rasa idea is old, and hence that Rasa was manifesting in the music, in the art, in the dance, folk arts, folk dance, folk material. So they call it Desi later on. They call it Desi, which happens in the Desh. Desi, the rural area. And then they combine together so-called classical. Classical in the sense, you say in raga, you say in a particular style. The person who really says that I love you, he doesn't know the style. He just says how the locality will take it. So together he created this book called Brihadasi, and then comes a beautiful, magnificent book by the Sarangadeva in 13th century, which becomes the Bible of music, Sangeeta Ratnagara. And I think if all of you, if you don't, I do think you must see, if you're Indian, see Panini once, understand why you speak, and then also open this book once, that what India's contribution to the world is. Next. Physical sciences, I kind of hinted on this. So we had said before the Jainas had some understanding of the boundaries of the universe, that is somehow the sky doesn't have a boundary, and beyond the boundary sky might contain. So that's the idea of infinity. Infinity is not something, is there, but sky itself is not infinite. There's boundedness because I can count how many objects in the universe are. The discrete structure of matter, that also, and the symmetry. Symmetry is the important part in the sense that the world is symmetric. Life is symmetric. Objects are symmetric. They do not care. They do not really analyze how symmetry comes, but that observation and then principle of conservation, cause and effect. This is important. Cause and effect in the sense, I don't know how Indians come to this. That is, things don't happen by chance. See, many times we have a late literature, British time, where they are written as though big poets, big scholars, they just happen to be God speaking to them. That is the late this thing, and I read that when I was a kid. You know what I mean? That's not the Indian story. Indian story is that there is something must have happened. It could be genetic, but that's a cause. So that's very fundamental. Cause and effect.
8 minutes, 8 minutes.
Okay. Regarding the observation reduction, gravitational, speed of light, size of Earth, evolution, then material science, heat bonding extension, I'll come to that more later. Go on. Medical science, when we talk about the, so the question is, the mind and life of Sankhya, then yoga and pranayama came, and I was talking about this long breath and so on must have taken for the performance. The performance also acrobatics and so on, and then these three words were discovered, which is very unique in Indian science. That's the tribe of Bhatha, Pitta, and Kapha, which operates. And I think there's a whole science to it, I don't know if it's also discovering freshness matters, and then honey and ghee are good, alcohol, opium, and then the Greeks and Arabs came and so on, and this Bhatha, Pitta and so on, they had also something similar, but they didn't have this generalization. They are yellow and black and so on. Is what I'm saying? The scientifically, there's no yellow bile and black bile. Okay, move. Agriculture, I will go into this. That's a particular book I found called Vrikshagala, which is a plant science. Then botany, I think Hardeep mentioned about lot production, and there's a whole literature on this, and veterinary science. Somehow they knew how to handle cows, horses, elephants, tigers, so they take care of them. Yeah? Next one. Chemistry, and I will talk this a little more. Chemistry became alchemy. Chemistry was, as I said before, the glue and the oils and the plating solvents, the health values, perfume. So those are also chemical. But then later on, somehow they came to know that, look, we can change metal to another metal. We can create gold. So I do not know how much, why they got into that, but there's a theory behind it, which probably Satyendra tried to mention, in the sense that the thing that, look, transformation is possible. Move on. Metallurgy. We know about this big rods and these towers, iron rods supported vegetable glues and so on, but the point is rust-proof iron we know of, and so those happen, alloys happen, and this is very popular. So which was again not really any engineering technique, but by mixing and experimenting, and so you discover them. Jewelry making, very important, metal soldering, yeah? And then technology, I'll quickly go through this, stone, temple, palm leaf, jewelry, beads, okay? Stone carving, granite, marble, quartzite, slate, sandstone. I think you saw them in the previous slides from the temples. But this is like a rock cut here. This is like a granite, the whole, big 70 feet. And this is marble, this quartzite from Nepal, slate. Slate is like black stone, and then the sandstone. Then these are the tools. Now, nothing remarkable about them, but the question is, that these tools, which do not look sophisticated, they produce these objects. Then, temple construction is appealing to me. The temple has a 1/3 of the temple goes on the ground, and then rest, so depending upon how much height you want to make. And then there's a sketch. This is a door sketch. So this is how the door will be. There's a frame, and this is a sketch again. So that's geometry. So this sketch is like for a teacher and a student. The student is here, teacher is there. But the question is, and things look perfect. That's because geometrically they sketch it beforehand. This is an assembly house sketch, these are all pillars. The question is the stability of it, the stability of it, we do not know, but these are the things we have. There's a book called Silpasastra, and these are the temples. I come from this area, Bhubaneswar. So this is how this structure eventually becomes like this, and this structure is this. Yeah? Then palm leaf, this is palm, this is dried, and then the palm is cut into pieces, and this is where the artistry is. Now the paint is vegetable paint and metal paint, and I've given some kind of samples about how the palm leaf has been written. So this is from Bihar, and this is from Bali, and that's from Jain of Rajasthan, and this is a painting from a friend who came here. He came to Science Museum, so he gave to me, and this is also from this guy. Then jewelry. The important thing we said before is that the individualized technology, in the sense they're not doing this massive production, but they're making jewelry. They're making small production. So iron also is done in crucibles. Smelting is small ovens. So small things come, then they kind of hammer them and make bigger things. So here they are melting, they're making a bar. The bar is kind of moved through some kind of iron hole, then they pull it, so that becomes a wire. So that wire makes this production. Then the lost wax, the gentleman also come here. I saw it. So he make a wax model, and the wax model, then you fill it up with, the model is inside here, and you put clay, and then you bake the clay. After you bake the clay, then you kind of take out the wax, drop it out, see the dropping is here, and then after that, you put hot metal into the slot here. So that produces these structures that you see here eventually. Then beads, this is very old. Mohenjo-daro had them, but becomes perfected. So you see the bead work in different kinds of glass, lacquer, wood, bones, ivory, plant, so like that. And then you see the use of the beads in different ways. Now the string is not so well known. So you they use wires, the silver wires. So now here the beads are being placed in the textile itself, and you can see the old people, indigenous women, they're using the beads and the beads in the necks. And so there's a bag, yeah. There's a whole technology of it. I'm using this as a sample. Weaving, so these are different patterns and tools, Varnashti weave, Kanchi weave, Gujarat weave, Sambalpur weave. So there are different styles and so on. As you can see, there is the different styles emerge, the creativity of different people, and the technology is different. Somewhere, for example, this one is like a dip. Every time the string is not really second string. The same string is dipped. Here there's the second string. Here there's a loom where this side one thing, this side other thing. So if you see this in the globe microscopically, you see how these people would not know how it evolved. Then iron bars. So iron is produced in small ovens like this. So see this, and then so you see this such a small scale production, and from this small scale you produce this huge bars. So these bars are from Konarak. This is Konarak. So it's supposed to be used inside of it. There's a door of Konarak here. So these bars are used here, and this is from Madhya Pradesh. So my point is that to make to really small scale, you make this large scale by virtue of not fabricating somewhere, but by human ingenuity. Move on. Maritime, you make boats. So again, I did not find any boat making technology. I'm showing you pictures of what I think might be happening. So this is This is a pleasure boat, and this is a boat from Malaysia, where likely people visited, and then this is how they sail. So they don't look too big and so on, but, oh, okay. And because I go to the Philippines, this is a boat in the Philippines that trying to see such a boat might have existed for travel. Then, all right, I put Laplace here. The engineer's method of expression is possible number using a set of 10 symbols, each symbol has base value, absolute value, intermediate. The idea is so simple nowadays that its significance profound important no longer appreciated. Its simplicity lies in the way it facilitated calculation with arithmetic foremost among these in the entries. The importance of the invention is more readily appreciated when considered because beyond the two greatest men of antiquity, Archimedes and Apollonius. So the question is, if we are understanding rightly, we have to place these geniuses, Baramira, Aryabhatta, Dandi, into the place of geniuses in the world. Next one. I just want to conclude the last slide here. So I call it whole person science. Whole person science is science is not added to me. I am science. So the human being is a cosmic object. The environment is critical for the learning of humans. The environment includes the sky and the heavens. We're all together. I'm not speaking alone. The sky and earth is with me. So this is a large thing. To understand that I'm affecting them, they're affecting me. Any action activity is a function of a mind and thinking, that is where the connection is. My injury, my well-being, my this thing is a function of my mind, and that mind is pervasive. The mind is everywhere. So all phenomena are causal connected. This is fundamental, important, and we think we're not giving enough credit to the Indian scientists to have discovered this. There's a cause. There's no creation per se, there's a cause. But I also say that through this process, some superstitions might have developed, which is the human lifespan can be arbitrarily extended. If the life is in the universal I am one, then why you do not have the same life scale as the universe? Objects can be transformed, which means why not each object can have similar properties to other objects? Why everything can't be gold? Elixirs to achieve immortality possible to discover, we call it Amrita. So we see in the different scriptures and so on, but I think that's not really that fallacious, but such ideas is strong. Individual life cycles, reincarnation, birth, and so on. The birth carries memory of the past life, this also some people carry. And religious encoded conduct supersedes personal conduct. So this is somehow called regimented again, in the sense that human freedom is not really through religion. And I don't know how it has come, but it has come massively lately. So anyway, with those ideas and thoughts and so on, I conclude. I think that last slide is it. Thank you. Questions? I went through, my friend Devnaran is here. All right. Okay, yeah.
Given how advanced Indian science was 1,000 years ago, what happened? How did we lose the race?
Good point, good point. We thought about that. I think the Moynihan came here in 1974 when I came to MIT, and his first talk, he was ambassador in India, and they invited him to give a talk. And he said that India missed the Industrial Revolution. That was his first statement. And when I was a kid, I didn't, okay, all right, good. But that's a statement. And the question is, why did you miss it? I try to analyze at this time. My response is that it becomes so individualized. People didn't want to homogenize. I don't want a mass production. I don't want everybody to put the same shirt as I do. Let them have their own custom. I don't want this, and that is how thousands of rice grains developed. Thousands of lentils, thousands of spices. No, I'm saying it is not that the same spice goes in every home. There's no grocery store. When even I was growing up, my village, and my father was in jail and so on, I was with my grandmother, and the oil in the home would be every day brought from the oil mill. They would fish it, the fresh. So that thing became the style. The life is contained, self-made, and so on. So we don't go into any artificiality.
So it's not colonialism and invasions and the usual explanations.
That probably did contribute to suppress it. So that's what I was alluding before, that is this independence that we have, right? So that needs certain security. That is, I am not fearful. But if somebody is kind of having a gun in my home, then I can't dress myself. I don't have that half an hour to comb my hair. So all that style was gradually snatched away. I tell you, we have not seen that. What we are seeing now, we are all homogenized. By the same shirt. That was not the case. I want to simulate India at 1100 AD today. But I was not courageous enough to tell people, dress as you like. Because they had no dress. Know what I'm saying? So they said, why intimidate me? Put a cap, put a pagdi, put this thing. And then not only the dress, you walk differently, style differently. Know what I'm saying? So that was Russia. But the only conservatism of that is that when we do that, I'm not displacing anything. I'm respecting the other guys. I'm not vulgar. I'm artistic. I'm useful. I'm presenting myself. But presenting has so much sophistication, you know what I mean? Then people accept. I don't know how that developed though. That's India. That's India. So that's, if we have any message to the children, that be stylistic, be individualistic, be creative, but not imposing. Blend. What we do now, we blend, no style. We blend because we think if we perform their style, then that's the way we blend. You know what I mean? It is no. I can make my food my way, and you will eat. Okay, yes.
Where can we find the original document of some of the mathematical concepts? And the world is not thinking that all that we list is actually originated from
Origin of what?
India is not getting the credit of the some of the
That's okay, that's up to us. India is not getting credit for anything. That's a different thing. You get credit for yourself. You understand it. That's what we're trying to do. We did not know, I myself did not know. Until this period, I did not know that India discovered human freedom. Just imagine this. That you have freedom. The freedom is not liberty. It's not political freedom. You are free by birth. Nobody shackles you. Know what I'm saying? And that's the discovery.
Well, you're shackled by your caste system.
No, that's again artificial. You can impose it. Religion, you know. Okay, all right. Yeah.
The question was, where can we find the documents?
So when you find documents, they're there. I think go and dig and so on. You know, some materials coming out. What I showed is only a very small sample. That they say that millions and millions of documents are not even unearthed. That they are hiding things. And as I see, there must be. Because every statement I made must have been made through 100 other documents. You know, I mean, things don't happen like this. Okay, thank you again.
So, our last speaker,
Yeah.
but not by any means the least, is Ms. Bhavani Vankineni, otherwise known as Vani. She's an IT professional with active participation in Indian scriptural reading, cultural productions, and community service. Empathetic in nature, she offers a hand to people in need where she can. She serves as the treasurer of the India Discovery Center. So Vani will talk about the economy and politics.
Hello, good evening. So this is the extension from the last period. So this is just a peek of the golden period. I want to just have a glimpse of this and then extend to this period called Hindu period. So and then we go with the difference as to where it's leading to and what was the downfall of the golden period. So here, as we see, the economy is still flourishing. Trade is still the major revenue. Here, in the golden period, the decentralization from the empires started, and compared to the Hindu period, the golden period was more stable. So now, coming to the Hindu period. So here, the agriculture, has increased. So the revenue, the tax revenue was mainly from the agriculture, besides trade. We see here the expansion of individual ownership. The lands are individualized now. Like we see that because the lands were granted in terms of, like sometimes like for your services, the king would grant you some lands. And also the unused lands were encouraged to cultivate, they were given to temples and villages. Then the trade here widened in the sense because of the technology, there were ships that were built which could carry vast amount of trade to export. Specific to this period is the temples. There were so many temples that were built in this period. So that shows that every empire had huge revenue, and then they were used to build temples. Also, the temples were not just ornamental; they were used in different ways. They created a huge employment, and then the treasures were stored there. It acted basically like a bank or something. And then it also served as a stage for the fine arts like drama, dance, and the social mingling, the music, the cherries, and all of those. Then when we come to the political administration, the king remained at top of the central administration. That hasn't changed. But what has changed is the decentralized administrative units have gained power. So that weakened the central system. Then the judicial system is also at all levels, the central and also the local level. The local level, it's all the local issues by themselves, so they were less dependent on the empire, on the central empire. So as the local power increased, they wanted to be on their own, and that weakened the central system also in a way. So let's look at this agriculture. So the rural economy was mainly based on cultivation. So more lands were encouraged to be used for the cultivation. Also, the change, this is one important change here, the land ownership is tilting towards individualized units than the whole area controlled by the empire. So that resulted in innovating new irrigation systems, and the various practices were also introduced in assessments and like how the taxes are levied. So also there were different types of farms that there were increase in fisheries, and there were introduction of new crops. I think it's because of the trade, the exposure to the trade caused in bringing new crops here. And also the cash crops, brought in a lot of wealth, like coconut, wheat leaf, and, right. So when we see the tax system here, the Chanakya's model is still flourishing, but there were more additional taxes that have been levied. So there, so separate departments for the tax assessment, are regulating, like, how much amount of tax a person pays, or, based on what. So these are the generic terms that I could come up with. So for a farm tax, it was 1/4 of his produce. And also dependent on what kind of soil it was, what kind of crop it was. So the land tax, again, it's based on the size of the land and the land type, like is it upland, lowland, fertile. So besides the farm and the land tax, there are additional taxes, the irrigation tax. So this is based on the supply of water, like so if a person has a bigger land, then he will need a lot of water. So it's based on how much the supply he took, and also again it's divided into where did the water come from. Is it derived from manual labor? Is it from the animal labor or mechanical labor? So based on that, again, the percentage varies. So here, what we see is there is an introduction of this new tax called a tree tax. So if a tree is being useful for either fruits or medicinal purposes or as a herb, there was also tax levied on that. So we see an increase in taxes in this era. The cattle tax and the land tax, again the sales tax was there, when the land was sold or horses were sold. Also, the villages were categorized based on the amount of taxes paid. So, the Hindu temples and the Buddhist monasteries acted as the centers for the trade. So much of economic activity took place. And also the surplus in the rural were also exported to these trade activities. And the spice trade, this was huge. And also we see a tremendous increase in the spice trade in this era. That's, it could be the exposure to the Arab world, wherein they use aromatic spices a lot in their food. And also with the spread of Buddhism, the aromatic wood like sandalwood has increased. So the foreign crops were introduced to India, and also the Indian products were seen to reach the world. Here the trade network has increased, and sea trade took a big upscale here. Because of the technology, the ships that were built the designs were very efficient. That led in carrying huge amounts of produce for imports and exports. Also the centers like Kavaripatnam in Tamil Nadu, Pondicherry and Sopatnam and Puri, Goa, Dayu and Bombay, these served as the major maritime trade centers. And the evidence in the Ajanta frescoes also illustrates that the ships were highly, technologically efficient ships were seen in those paintings. And also in some of the points found in Andhra, they show, the images show that we have, by this era, the ships are, very huge. So, the connection between the diet and physical well-being led to the increase in usage of herbs and spices. So the herbs were domesticated. They are also used as a medicinal purpose. Like say, sandalwood is used, for its astringent properties, and clove is for, if you get any toothache or anything, the clove, you just bite a clove and it will numb you. So same thing, nutmeg and mace were were used in tonics. The spices have reached Rome, Europe, and at this time the trade was of a high value. So the profits also gained like about 40% of the profits. And then the pottery from India and China were found in Indonesia, and the bronze kettles were also exported. So I just show you the list of empires in this era. This is just to list down. I don't have time to go over everything, but I just picked a couple of them. But these are the list of empires in that era. Second slide. So we also see a lot of political changes in this period. The Gupta Empire is almost declining. It's weakened by the constant raids from Central Asia. And also the Harshvardhana has bought the whole northern India under his control. But after his death again, the kingdoms were divisionized, and each of them struggling in their powers. Like in the northwest, it's Gujara and the Palas in the northeast and Rashtrakutas in the Deccan. The constant battle was to win over the city because it was a region where a central region where everybody wanted to have their power. Also, the invasion of Arabs in the Indian subcontinent expanded the new religion that Islam was spreading. So I just picked up, a couple of empires. So this is the political map of the Maitrika Empire and their contemporaries. You see, so the Maitrikas are in the Gujarat area. The Chalukyas are still there, and the late Gupta period is in the Patliputra area. So this is just a list of administrative divisions, like basically how the empire is divided, like from Aharas to Petas to Talis, and the Grama is the lowest subunit. Then Bhaktahara introduced the Maitrika dynasty, and it lasted for 300 years. So next we see the Vijayanagara Empire. This is in the South India. So just like any other empire, the king is the head of the state here. He needs to focus on the welfare of the people. He acts also as a commander-in-chief. In this period, the notable king is Krishnadevaraya. Among all the kings, he was most popular and well-liked by people. He believed that the king should always rule based on the dharma. He had council of ministers. In this era, the ministers were appointed from different castes like Brahmin, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. It was not confined to one caste. And also, although the ministry is hereditary, it was not followed. So, continuing here, so each province, the empire is divided into many provinces, and it's almost 6 provinces existed in this empire. Again, the provinces were divided into districts, and then the districts into small villages. The villages were very self-sufficient here. That is the lowest unit of the administration here. They had their grants of land, so they could generate revenue based on those lands. And they did not depend much on the central system. Although there was a connection between the central and the state, so there were special officers that were appointed from the center so that they still maintained the contact. Although they did not rule, but they still maintained the contact. So let's look into the revenue and taxes. So here again, the revenue is based on the amount of production of that land. The sources of the income also based on the types of crops that you produce and the different land types, the wetland, dry land, or we had orchards or woods. Basically, the taxes were 1/6 of the produce, and various taxes that are also levied on people here. The king maintained a huge army, and the revenue from the taxes were used over there. So the judicial administration here. So the king is the head of the judicial system. He did appoint judges in his court, and he looked into most of the cases he was present. The villages had their own assembly. It's called the Gram Panchayats. So they adjudicated their own cases, and they took help of the local people. The punishment varied based on the crimes of what they had done. The severe crimes, had the severe punishments like that. Although the provincial government enjoyed power, but the disintegration of the empire is seen. The rulers also failed to develop a sustained economy, so that led to the downfall of this empire. So we'll see, we'll take another example. Like I took this example because it's very different than other empires. So I took the Delhi Sultanate administration system here. This empire, during this period, they tried to rule based on the secularism. So the king equivalent is called the Sultan here. So the Sultan had to observe the Islam law, the Sharia. He's the head of the state and he's commander-in-chief. He had all the legislative and executive and judicial powers vested in him. He appointed ministers and they helped him in administering the state. So I wanted to present this because it's the words or the style of this empire is very different. So the state is divided, the powers in the state, you see these divisions in the offices here. So the Naib is called the executive of the powers, and we see the finance department called the Wazir. And the Wazir Malik is the controller of military. And the communication department is called Vidikran. And this extends so this foreign affairs called Diwani Risala. And the religious, here there is a religious department also which would levy taxes based on the religion. So this is totally new to this empire. They had communication department and the judicial department called Quasi. So let's see how the empire itself is divided. So just like how this looks similar to the previous empire, except that the names are a little bit different. So the empire is divided into provinces. So the province is called Iktas, and the Wali is the in charge of the Ikta. Again, the provinces are subdivided into smaller units called Shiks. And Shiks are divided into Pranganas, and Pranganas are divided into villages. This is a similar concept, but except the names are a little bit different. So I go over this in detail. So like who does what? So the province again. I just gave as a graph so that it will more absorb here. I covered this. So let me skip. So let's look into the taxes here. Here, besides the normal taxes like the trade tax, agriculture tax, sales tax, we see a different kind of tax, like a religious tax that was added, and this became a burden to the people. So the Muslims were charged, the Hindus were charged based on the religion, and also based on the income. So the land is gifted, and if the land is gifted, so here the land again they made a little bit of changes here. So if the land is gifted, then you don't need to pay a tax on that. Whereas the local lands, it has a different tax code, and if the land is owned by the central fed, it went to a different tax code. So there was a whole revenue system who would levy these taxes and who would come up with these laws. So Patwari is appointed for each division to collect these revenues. Based on these taxes, it became a burden to the people. And so because of the secular ruling and the taxes, this Sultan Empire has lost its grip. So the expenditure here were mostly used for salaries, paying the officers, and also they indulged themselves in decorating the palaces and funding events at a larger scale. So let's look at the army here. So they maintained a huge army because there were constant conflicts. So the Muslim rulers were trying to expand their territories, and the Hindus resisted in that, and there were constant wars between the Hindus and the Muslims. And also the local Muslim governors, they tried to establish their own kingdoms. They also faced invasions from the Mongols. And the army, the employment in the army, the soldiers were recruited based on central, local, or volunteers, or on a temporary basis.
Morning, 5 minutes.
So the army here, also had reserves for boats, which is used for transportation, and the Sultan has kept, some armies, permanently in every fort. Let's look at the judicial system here. So this reflects similar to the other empires. So the Sultan, like the king, has the highest judicial authority. One thing we see here is the military officers acted as a police department here. And still the panchayats, decided their own cases and they resolved their issues among themselves. The Islamic laws, however, enforced, the criminal and the civil cases. They were gone to, the law was very severe, like in this, the punishments were very severe, like, compared to the other emperors. And also the decline of this era would be based on, they tried to impose the secular principles that led to the downfall, and the huge taxes was a burden on the people. Thank you.
Okay. So we can take questions now. Questions in her and questions of any other people, including me, by the night. We can take them, because I just didn't want to reduce our time. So we can take questions for 15 minutes. Then we have a friend here, especially come, this friend, and he will be doing the all things ends in Sikhism. So we shall see how the Shabad comes into play. All right. Question. To continue on his material, as he said before, if you permit me to answer it or fully explain it, which also relates to, as he said, this whole process of...
Let me ask a question. Can I ask a question to her?
You can, but let me continue the thought I had before. The problem is what happens is the following, which we do not fully realize. That is, India probably did have some people who were not producers, who were not artisans, who were not farmers. So the question is whether they could be manipulated to become local chieftains. See, what the economy, I think you were not here in the morning, from the centralized economy became decentralized economy. So decentralized economy becomes like a local. There's a king and he has 1 million people. Those 1 million people, he knows them, so they give taxes and he produces, they produce. Now, however, when it becomes a empire again, central, so the taxes go to the center. So when taxes go to the center, who is the tax collector? So tax collector is not the local person anymore, or the local individual anymore. So somebody is there who beats up people. So gradually, through taxing, you take away the land. And that's the whole process which happened in the late 13th, 14th, 15th century. And we shall see how best to, we did not go into that part of it, but the details of it in Arabic and other literatures. So anyway, so she can probably follow up.
About the Sultanate, what was the period of the Delhi Sultanate and how large was Delhi Sultanate in terms of territory?
It was quite large. It occupied almost the northern part of India, and also it came to the Deccan in some areas like the northern part of Andhra was still ruled by the Muslims, and that's how the Muslim religion spread in Andhra. The era I don't remember exactly, but I can look into. I think it's around 1200 to 1300 AD.
So one of the Delhi Sultanate's Khilji's slave, Malik Kafur, came actually to Madurai. So he was there for 30 years or something. And then the Vijayanagara Empire chieftains, they came and drove away that.
Right, and then also the Vijayanagara Empire also, got defeated by the next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was after a period of 300 years.
300 years, yeah.
That was the longest serving.
Yes.
But they did not come through Odisha. Odisha was a separate. The kingdoms of Odisha was not Muslim at that time.
I don't know. Yeah.
So they were not.
No, they didn't.
They must have gone through either the sea route or through.
Bad too.
I mean, from Delhi to Vijayanagara was a long distance.
At least in the Vijayanagara Empire, what I have seen is they opened up the foreign people, like they let Portuguese come into.
I'm talking about Delhi.
Because of the trade. Yeah, so they opened up their empire, so everybody, were to come, and in the end, they defeated you. Anybody else?
So you said non-Muslims were taxed separately, right?
Yeah, religious tax was there. Like for Muslims, it was one tax. For if you're a Hindu, it was a different tax. If you're a rich Muslim, you had its level of tax, it varied.
People were willing to pay the extra tax than convert to.
No,
Yes,
it wasn't
I
extra.
don't know if it's
It was a
conversion.
different kind. Like Muslims are asked to pay,
Zakat.
it was called zakat.
Ah, okay.
Others were asked to pay jizya.
Yeah, okay, but the same amount was not.
Amount could be different depending on your status.
Okay.
Like if you were a courtier and you happen to be a Brahmin, so your tax level was different. And if you are courtier, you happen to be a Muslim, then you have to pay that tax as well as zakat.
Okay.
Also, most likely, that process helped to convert. So many of the artisans, so we have a lot of Muslim artisans now.
Right.
So they may be earlier, the jewelers,
Right.
the artists. So they probably take advantage of the tax. So it must have happened, but we have not analyzed that fully. We need more resources to analyze, but it's a conjecture that taxes did happen, that we know. But what the taxes, how the conversion took place.
Because of that.
The other thing also happened, it seems, that the converted people, they were used in the army to slaughter others. So that's the bigger question. So the question is, how do we escape this kind of a thing? So that part is sad, but we do not know. We'll examine it, but I don't know how sympathetic we'll examine it, how much material is there, because when people rule you, they wipe the history. So we are trying to understand who are us. So why we are poor? If this technology existed, why not? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, see, also, most of the people who converted to Islam, they were low-caste people. And on the point that Bijoy makes it also, and a lot of them were also recruited into the army because it offered them certain freedom and certain material benefits, and also a spiritual liberation from the yoke of Brahmanism. And so that also creates a complexity that we need to understand. Because as somebody pointed out, this whole opulence and wealth was on the back of women and Shudras. And so it created many, many conflicts in society, which of course, like any invader, made use of.
If I could just add, like for example, Punjab, Sindh, Multan, they were Buddhist, so they also had a conflict with Brahmanism.
Yes.
So I think it's a history that we haven't unfolded, that it's not a society that's peaceful. There is conflict in the society beyond the Islamic entrance. So I think we're going to have to really look at the largeness of what happens when surplus is made. Everybody fights for the surplus. I think that's what I was trying to get through the message. It's not one section. It is all the sections that sit above want that surplus, and it's huge.
So the weakness that existed in the society was caused many of the problems.
I'd say we need to study the whole of this part.
Yeah, I think the point she makes is also important that Balochistan, Afghanistan, Sindh, Punjab, by the time of advent of Islam, they are Buddhist, they are not so-called Hindu. And just period before that, you have a genocide of Buddhists that takes place in India. You just have to read texts of Meherkul or Raj Tarangani. And according to some documents, people who could not, flee, they were turned into low caste. Because in the Brahminical system, you cannot convert to a caste. You are born. So whoever could not flee, like in Punjab, they were all turned into chamars. And then when you have, so Islam comes in two ways. One is from the top by the invaders, the other is the bottom through the Sufis. So who speak the local language, like I think Vani's presentation was really good. Like all the administrative system is in Farsi, but the text of Sufis are in the local language, either Punjabi, Sindhi, or Saraiki. And this conflict that exists in society, different religions, different castes. So Sufi, as Sunil also pointed out, this message of love and universalism really gave a lot of hope to especially the downtrodden people. Similarly, later on it happens, there was a message of the Gurus, Guru Nanak and all that time Gurus, most of the conversion in Sikhism is actually from local. And so that dynamics is also going on. We really need to look into it, like we haven't really looked.
Right.
So these are the features.
Yeah, that's true. I think the point, let us sum up this way. That is the way we saw it as we're discussing. That is the Sankara we mentioned. The point is that when his speech says this can't happen in a vacuum.
Right.
People have to accept it. So there was a time, maybe post-Golden, where the general acceptance was there. It might have lasted maybe a couple of 100 years or so. But then again, people become weak in the sense that the tendency to depend on a deity or depend on religion or depend on it. So the question is how that socially happens, we do not know, but most likely, and through that process, when the wealth comes and dependence is there, the question is what bigger wealth. So the so-called wealth-based society develops, which becomes also regimented. Earlier regimentation was the Vedic regimentation. So now new regimentation is wealth regimentation. So jamindars come and so on, and most likely, so as Hardeep says, the exploitation started before even Islamic people showed up.
Yeah, I think that is important.
Because the trade is so massive. Yeah. So the person who trades, he needs to get production done. Is a capital production. So the question is, so that process in which that I have this village who produces this thing, I trade, I take half the money. You know, I mean, it's not directly going to the worker. That probably happened and gradually deteriorated. And I think that the word Brahminical is used, I won't say Brahminical per se, but hierarchical, which is based on whosoever can really let people believe in them. And so deterioration. So what we also said I think in one of the statements, that this knowledge-based system that Sankara or other people try to develop is probably unstable. It's probably an extremely creative society where every individual is stylish, does things and so on. That needs a basis, that needs an overhead, a protection, a state. The state did not exist. So now other people bring a state. And state dominates. When state dominates, individual doesn't exist anymore. So it's back to, and then what we are now in that state-dominated state. You know, when you just...
So during the 500 to 1500 time period, definitely during the 500, there was a conflict between the Buddhists and the Hindus.
Right, but those are local though, they're not large. We don't know that.
And you mentioned that this particular thing was not easy because what Adi Shankara did was that he re-establishes Hinduism in 4 different parts of India. Okay, and at that time, entire India was flush with Buddhism.
But no Hinduism per se though. Okay. So that's the mistake in the sense of freedom.
Adi Shankara, whatever he did for the Buddhists, for the Brahmins.
No, that's not the, no, Vedanta. So anyway, so we have to kind of, we move on. So we have 10 minutes now.
Just one comment. I think the way we have to look at it is that a certain destabilization started taking place because no longer do we follow the Vedic, system of that. Like, for example, at one time you could only have Kshatriyas as kings and the Brahmins as priests, and then you have your lower caste, But there was a fair game in that. But as the wealth started increasing, that system broke down. I think it's better to look at it from that side, because it's when a system breaks that what replaces it. And I think this is what I was trying to allude to, that in the 6th century, things have changed. So when Shankaracharya comes into being, it's a crisis for a certain section of humanity in there. and they try to resolve, like maybe this is the way we need to go. Anyway, I think we just got to do a lot more work
Yes.
on this side of it, and we'll figure it out.
I also acknowledge your presence here, because when we conceive these things, we don't know who listens, and why should anyone listen? And they say that the holidays are coming, or Diwali, and so on. In that situation, you say what world India was, how did your freedom go away, who were ancestors? Good questions, but why now? So the question, so that you people are still here listening to us, giving patient hearing, I acknowledge that. Would you applaud yourselves for being present? We applaud our friend Leo here. Leo Rusho has been known to me for 35 years. He's a yogi. Anytime we have an event or so on, he shows up, he records it. We don't get enough money to edit them. So we have a lot of recordings, but we have not produced anything. We're still struggling to do, because we think that our contents are not mature, so what to promote? But I think at this time, we will try to put some material. So anyway, will you please applaud? Then we have this couple here you see, Hardeep and Jaspal. So they have been with me for 25, 30 years now. So we talked about it many, many years ago, and somehow they thought I was not talking nonsense. And then they believed in it, they still believe in it. So when you have these meetings every 2 weeks, I said, they show up. So I have at least one partner in this process. Would you applaud Hardeep and his wife? Hardeep grew up in England. She knows what exactly it happens to be an immigrant before us. So the question is, when we say we're going an immigrant inquiry into what the future holds for people of Indian descent, culturally, traditionally, religiously, and then she has thought about before, but it is hard. I should also thank people who spoke, Ramapriya and Mukundan. So they were recruited a week ago. And then Mukundan has this particular habit of knowledge of poetry. So I discovered them when I was doing the Saundarya Lahari with my student Sri Lakshmi. And that time I noticed his talents. So we said, let us do a little further. So they volunteered to really prepare themselves. I think what I noticed it is an experiment, a scientific experiment. Experiment was the amount of breathing required is too high. But would you applaud the efforts that they did relive Raghunath? I have two friends here who have been with me, blessed me, and they have been with me for a long, long time, and they have been always there. They're not there as Jaspal is sitting with me, but they're there mentally. They attend, they write, they talk to me, they encourage me, they're with me. Will you please applaud Sajid and Roji Kamal? Roji grew up here in a town next here, but then she has been not only a faithful wife, an Indian wife. We do not know what Indian wife should be or is, but the way I see her operate, I kind of go back that these temples that you build, that the wife somewhere behind, and sees that wife.
Well, I'm honored to be part of everything here. Thank you.
And then we have this, Satyendra. Satyendra showed up like a seminar like this. He has known to me for 10 years or so in a different context. We do Ramayana together, but he showed up, and then I asked him that would he like to speak, and he has been diligent toward her. very thoughtful. He comes from a philosophy family. His father is a professor of philosophy. But the point is, when we do this, not many people fully understand what we are doing, why we are doing, what is called analysis of philosophy. And Satyendra, from the day one, he got it. He struggles hard. It is hard because when you have a job and so on with a lot of things, and this thing complex. So would you applaud his efforts for doing this thing? Then come my friend Prem Nagar. Prem Nagar I accidentally met. I accidentally met in a concert. Somebody introduced me that he is Prem Nagar. I said, okay, good. So Prem Nagar. But that was like 12 years ago. But Prem has been a staunch, a friend, partner, neighbor. He's there. He went with me to Bangkok to present the paper. And I told him that, look, I get up early and so on. So not only that, we were sharing a room. Not only gets up early, by the time I get up, he has coffee for me. Can you believe Prem Nagar? Will you please? And his wife also is equally interesting. She's not here today, but she's also encouraging from the motto we have, the mission of IDC. Would you please, in absentia, applaud Preeti and give the gratitude. Then my friend is Bani. What is Bani? Bani is here? Okay. Bani is Sai. Bani came to a class I taught. Sai, she sits in the back like now. But she is the utterly most sincere person I ever met. You know what I mean? The whole thing that you saw, she prepared in 10 days. She was sick for 3 months. So I gave her volumes of books. Then he said, I'm doing. So late last night, so about 8 o'clock night, she sent her slides. So she sent me some draft before, a day before. But anyway, so that she stands up. I do not know that part of Indian personality. People look shy, people look defensive, but people deliver. And that's the beauty of the Indian mind, humble, humility. And that I don't show off, I produce. Would you applaud? Then we have like Jayadev presented this thing. He came to us about 3-4 months ago, and he was a Suin. He was Suin because the person who was trying to do the temple and architecture, he dropped out. So I had to find someone. He jumped in, and he has limited time. So in limited time, he gathered whatever he could.
He did really well.
And then he presented it. And then I should single out of Devnan is my friend. We studied together in class, so he kind of shows up, but I should like him to show up more at 9 o'clock and so on. So that's how I say, look. And then, but also we have a donor, Giri. Giri showed up. He was in a class I taught in the temple, and Giri showed up, and he was the first student I had. Because when I'm not a teacher of Sanskrit, so he made me the teacher. So we were together. I learned Sanskrit through him. He doesn't know this. So I studied the book I got from Michigan, and I told him that your book was my first book to teach. So they and a few other people came up and so on. And then when I asked, so this Hindu thing I tried to present or talk about, I tried to talk to many people. Would you talk about yourself and the practice you do? People did not volunteer. People say, I can talk, but I cannot talk about Hinduism. See, what has happened is that the third eye view of Hinduism. Hinduism is, Hinduism was, Hinduism has, but people do not say, I am a Hindu. I wanted him to say, you are. And he elegantly presented himself, and he spoke more about him, which kind of reduced. But would you applaud his efforts? But meanwhile, he's also Trump's temple, he has gone ahead and he kind of organizes the large Sanskrita Bharati conversation classes all around the country. Valiant effort, all worldwide. Would you applaud? With that, I think, and also my donor. Here is my donor. He is Mahendra Bhai Bakshi. So we have donors. If you want to be donors, please be donors. Donors in the sense, we said donors are people who, give us money. So he did give $1,000, and there are other people. But I will encourage you, if you like us, please do. There's a volunteer form, you can sign up. We are just grassroots people, pedestrians. We don't have any handlers or this thing. We don't have any opinions. We just walk. Because I thought that we have to be truthful. So that's what we operate. And I'm thankful to these whole people who are kind of nice and kind and so on. They let us do stuff. We have been down here for many sessions and will continue.